aunque es indisociable, no hablar mucho del grupo y hablar más del libro, ¿no? Que es lo que venimos a presentar aquí. Que me parece, o sea, uno de los puntos fuertes del libro creo que es que esté escrito desde la óptica de un panderetista, ¿no? Que es como alguien que siempre está como a la... no sé si era Antonio Machín que decía que en la conga de la vida el que lleva la percusión, el que lleva las maracas o el que lleva la pandereta es el que va siempre adelante, ¿no? Y creo que esa figura del que observa, del que mira lo que hace el resto del grupo, sigue el ritmo y emite buenas vibraciones, pues es muy privilegiada para escribir unas memorias de un libro de rock, ¿no? O de un libro que al final te está hablando de una era, ¿no? Y la figura del panderetista también, que es algo que Joel ha llevado como a un estadio superior, ¿no? Recuperando un poco una figura que solo existía en los grupos de los 60, ¿no? Aquí quizá también es equiparable o aquí también remite a la tuna, ¿no? El panderetista, que esto no lo digo como algo baladí, sino porque creo que Joel también tiene algo de tunante, ¿no? En el mejor sentido de la palabra, ¿no? El sentido de la picaresca, ¿no? Del pícaro alegre. Y el libro está escrito muy desde esa óptica y es uno de los puntos fuertes, ¿no? Y un poco, no quisiera quedar como muy revertiano, ¿no? Pero siguiendo un poco con este símil del siglo de oro, creo que se puede leer como una novela picaresca realmente y también como una figura quijotesca, ¿no? O sea, como un Sancho Panza, un escudero que sigue a ese Quijote que es Santo Newcombe, ¿no? Y teniendo él algo muy de quijotesco, ¿no? Pero quizá más como un... a ver cómo traduces esto, pero un Don Quijote de la Marcha, que creo que sería como algo que le define bastante bien, como luchando contra los molinos de la industria musical, ¿no? Y bueno, dicho esto, pues, empezamos con la entrevista. Vamos a ir un poquito así a piñón, porque como sabéis en el concierto tenemos un tiempo para firmas, así que tenemos como un tiempo bastante limitado. Bueno, Joel, la primera pregunta es que el libro arranca con tu llegada a San Francisco, que es una ciudad en la que tú no naces, pero te fascina desde pequeño, y está muy ligado a esa ciudad en una época en la que se está viviendo al otro lado del charco un segundo verano del amor, ¿no? Con todo el rollo Manchester, pop, shoegaze, ¿no? Y el punto de partida es cómo eso se vive desde la ciudad donde ha pasado la precuela, ¿no? El primer verano del amor. La primera pregunta es cómo vivisteis o cómo se vive esa escena desde tu ciudad, que era como el sitio donde todo eclosionó.
So, this question is... So you're set in San Francisco, but it's... so how did you create the whole Brit scene, like this second love, Summer of Love?
Punto de partida también lo hemos llevado a comer. Todos un poquito lengua de trapo.
From San Francisco, that's where you were set. Like, how did you do for that? Like looking at how everything that you did in your opinion, especially in the United Kingdom, how did you live that? That's his question.
Well, in the 80s, it was a very, very horrible time for music and pop culture in general if you weren't into whatever the industry was shoving down your throat. So a lot of American kids turned to England and Europe, but England specifically, to sort of find escapism through Joy Division, Echo and the Bunnymen, the Smiths, all these types of bands. And then that gradually turned into shoegaze. You know, all the Creation Records stuff and 480 stuff. And so it was partially a bunch of people that included myself, Anton, and the other guys in the band, and this whole scene we had, we're all responding to that. But it became the sort of next move of the ping pong game that America and England have been playing since the 50s, from Elvis to the Beatles and da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da. And so that was our kind of way to answer back at the time. But at that time, that kind of music in America was strictly subculture. So it was underground. It was, you got to be the weirdos and doing, you know, the drugs and you know, it's before, it was a very incredibly square time coming out of the 80s into the 90s. And rave culture happened. People came from England to start DJ parties in San Francisco specifically. So suddenly you had this underground all night lifestyle going on. I didn't really care about the music that much, but I was kind of into the whole, like, being out of my mind on a beach, you know, was pretty cool. So there was that, but then there was all these bands, and our band, you know, Anton's band was always the band of that crowd. And there was about 30 people trying to be in bands. And so to get in that band was just incredibly, incredibly exciting. And it's what helped me be able to recollect a lot of this book, was the fact that I just found the entire time so exciting to be in this band. I knew, even though all the world, and especially the people in our own town that didn't want to, like, you know, they wanted to be the whatever band and they weren't. It was what Anton was doing and they didn't like that. So nobody was recognizing it, but I knew that as far as I'm concerned, what in art and music and what turns me on, I was in the band. And so that the memories are very impressionable. And being on uppers kind of helped too, because it sharpens you up. But don't do them.
Bueno. Bueno, es bo que els 80...
Oh, do you have to tell him that now? Oh, no, I'm sorry.
Okay.
You guys know what I said.
No sé si no tradueixo. No, els 80 va ser una època molt horrible per la música i per la música en general. I llavors molta gent mirava cap a Anglaterra, perquè hi havia com tota una escena allà com Joy Division, Echo and the Bunnymen, tot el shoegaze i tal, Creation Records. I, bueno, era com una cosa una mica com un ping-pong, igual que ja havia passat als 50 i als 60, Elvis, els Beatles, doncs tornava a passar alguna cosa així. I, bueno, que per ell va ser com entrar en aquesta subcultura underground dels raros, les drogues, va ser com increïble i bueno, que la banda d'Anton, la banda en la que va entrar, doncs per ell era molt emocionant poder entrar en aquesta banda i bueno, bàsicament això, no?
Sí. Súper. No tenemos ¿tenéis un ejemplar por aquí? ¿Alguien tiene el libro para comentar un poquito la edición? Porque es la primera traducción, comentaba a cualquier otro idioma que no sea el inglés. Lo ha traducido Ivonne Radkin, que es una figura importante en la música independiente española, y la portada es de Estudio Oscuro, que tenemos por aquí a uno de los autores, a Juan. Pues levantar la mano. Sí. Sí. Y quería preguntarte un poco cómo fue recibir la noticia que una editorial independiente española quería publicar tu libro aquí, cómo ha sido el trato con Jandro y el resto de bruxistas, Y no sé si has hablado también con Gion, ¿qué te ha parecido la portada? O sea, ¿qué te ha parecido el resultado en general?
So, what was the experience with the publishing house here? Andrew,
Yes.
he's here.
He wrote this question.
If you had the
Yes, I
chance to illustrator of the cover, how was the experience?
Puede hablar más.
You can feel free to say.
You can say whatever you
Just
want.
what you want.
Pretend he's not here.
Yeah, the ultimate son of a bitch. Well, first of all, it was very exciting to have a translation offer, especially in Spanish. You want to say that part?
Que va a ser muy emocionante tener una traducción, bueno, no sé, lo hago en castellano, muy emocionante tener una traducción que le propusierais una traducción al español.
And what I found the most exciting was the obvious intent of understanding, like having something reflected back. I could tell that this was a publishing spot that got it and liked it and wanted to join it for the right reasons.
Pues que como lo más interesante es que las razones por las que querías publicarle era como las razones correctas, o sea, como que había una conexión ahí.
And that was further represented in the artwork. When I saw it for the first time, it's just every time you do a project of any kind and you asked for collaboration, there's always going to be some little thing that kind of sucks about it. You got to somehow tell this person without having to tell this person. And this just was so completely devoid of that. Like the cover art was just perfect. And it reminded me of when I was a child growing up, when psychedelia in the 60s had kind of trickled down. I think I say it in the book, it kind of trickled down into the 70s when, psychedelia became for children, And so that was the world I grew up in. And that cover transported me back to those feelings as a child that first got me interested. So then it was like I knew, I'm talking too long. But yeah, and then I knew that this was the shit.
Entonces, que cuando hay que hacer una colaboración, normalmente siempre hay algún momento en que la cosa pues, no va bien. Es como, a ver cómo le digo yo a que esto no está funcionando. Y esto no ha pasado esta vez. La ilustración, de alguna manera, he traído a su infancia, en la que la psicodelia formó parte de su infancia, y ya llegó en los 70, ya la psicodelia era como algo también para los niños, y bueno, eso ha sido, de alguna manera la ha retrotraído a ese momento de su vida.
Algo que me ha sorprendido también del libro es un poco como hay como esa frase tan trillada como que si recuerdas que se aplicó a los 60 y los 90, ¿no? Pues como que si lo recuerdas es que no estuviste allí, pero es incuestionable que tú estuviste allí y en primera línea y sin escatimar en excesos, ¿no? Pero es sorprendente la manera vivida en que recreas cada recuerdo, ¿no? Con todo el lujo de detalles, tanto de vestuario como de olores, como de ambientación y tal, ¿no? Y es un poco, la pregunta es, ¿cuál es el secreto, ¿no? O cómo ha sido el proceso de escritura. Si llevabas diarios, si ha sido un acto puramente memorialístico o si hay mucho de ficción.
So in the 60s and also in the 90s, there was this saying that if you remember them, you were not there, but you do remember a lot. So basically what wants to know how, and you remember like a lot in detail, like very sensory things. So what is your process of writing? Did you write diaries or it's just like memory?
Well, the person who was living that life, specifically in like the early part of the book, you know, there's no way. I was too busy living it to document it, and documenting it wouldn't really be living it that way. So that didn't really translate. So I didn't. But what I did have, as I mentioned, I was doing uppers that are very sharpening. So there wasn't a dulling because I was getting, you know, constantly. Do you want to do this? No, I gotta finish this thought. Because I was getting inebriated constantly. It wasn't like a dulling, and it was like a sharpening one. Which, you know, that was a certain place and time, and it worked then, and it certainly wouldn't work now, and I certainly don't condone anyone doing it. But at the time, when raves were just beginning to happen and all that stuff from before, it made sense at the time. So I was able to retain a lot of memories that way. And also because of the impressionableness of the situation, that also helped. And then, you know, I just kind of was teaching myself literary tricks throughout the process because it was a new process for me. Discovering writing was just this like lightning bolt out of the sky. And when I quickly realized I could do it, there was I wrote the first chapter. There's a chapter where I arrive at this warehouse. It turns out to be a drug warehouse, and I live there, and I get into these shenanigans. That's the first chapter I ever wrote, and I wrote it on a corner of Washington and Powell Street in San Francisco, and it just hit me. And I only had my phone, and I just thumbed the whole thing. And it's literally 90% verbatim of what's in the book. It just immediately clicked. And from there, through the whole writing process, you just kind of develop tricks of like, how am I going to tell this story? How different can I change the way I'm doing it? You know, just various tricks. You know, if there was a story where I didn't remember a lot of the details, I could focus on the room and what were people wearing, and you know, I don't remember exactly what they said, but I know what they would have, something exactly close to what they would have said, and I don't remember what they were wearing, but I know how they used to dress. So you kind of can just put things together, and you know, the author kind of has to be allowed these little you know, concessions, because otherwise, you know, there's no book. I mean, it's what I wanted to do is create the world for you. And yet, you know, you're not going to learn, you know, what pedals did Anton use, you know, or any of that kind of stuff. But I'm going to try my best to create what it would have felt like to be in that world with those people in those times was my main directive.
Bueno, que no escribía diarios porque estaba demasiado ocupado viviendo el momento, pero sí que...
No pensaba que fuera así.
Imagine you didn't write diaries. Your diary. Pero que bueno, sí que he ido aprendiendo trucos durante el proceso y que al final también se ha permitido concesiones porque, bueno, había, por ejemplo, hay momentos en que le venían escenas directamente como muy vívidas, pero luego ha habido concesiones literarias porque al final lo que quería recrear era el ambiente en el que vivía, en el que se vivía en ese momento y, bueno, igual no entra en detalle, no hay detalles sobre los pedales exactos que se utilizaban, pero que, bueno, al final sí que he intentado recrear la sensación de la época, ¿no?
Bueno, de hecho es guay, es como comentario a la persona, pero es guay que se ahorre esos detalles, creo, ¿no? Como que pedal o que ampli se usa, ¿no? Y que vaya un poco más al grano en recrear una historia de una manera casi como una novela, ¿no? Creo que es lo que
cool that you skip some details, but you can recreate the scenario.
Yeah, gotta do.
Vale. Hace poco leí una entrevista que no sé si era de hace poco, ¿no? Pero a Liam Gallagher, que decía que si no hubiera sido músico, hubiera sido Camillo. Entonces, mi pregunta es que en el libro cuentas que hiciste tus pinitos en esta profesión tan loable y necesaria, por otra parte, pero que casi acabas en la cárcel, ¿no? Entonces era, bueno, preguntarte si no tuvieras el mejor curro del mundo, que es ser panderetista de BRIAN JONESTOWN MASSACRE, no que no estamos de acuerdo que es el trabajo más envidiable, ¿no? ¿Qué hubiera sido? Y si hubiera sido, por ejemplo, escritor o...
So,
What do you say?
he recently read in an interview to Liam Gallagher that he said that if he hadn't been a musician, he would have been a drug dealer. And since you had some incursions in that job area and almost end up in jail, his question is, if you hadn't been a musician with the best job in the world, which is being the tambourine player in a band, what would have been your, what would it have been, like a writer or
cinema director,
Astronaut.
something else?
Astronaut.
I would have been the greatest astronaut there ever was. I kind of don't know what I would have been, because I saw the Beatles movie, you know, I saw Help and Yellow Submarine in kind of quick succession, and then I didn't know what doing something was, other than like, I just want to like be like those guys. And then when the Juice Mary Chain came out in '86, and I was just becoming a teenage guy, then I saw, wow, you don't really have to be very good at anything, do you? So then it was sealed. So I have absolutely no idea who I could have possibly been other than a tambourine player. And that's honest. But now I could be a writer. So thank God for that.
Astronauta, bueno, que desde que vio los Beatles, las películas de Help, Hello Submarine, etcétera, y luego también Jesus and Mary Chain en los 80, que vio claro que lo que quería ser y que no se le ocurre ninguna otra profesión que no fuera la que tocara la pandereta, ¿no? Y que está. Y ahora escritor, quizás.
¿Y tienes previsto escribir algo más o una segunda parte?
Do you plan to write something else? Second, like, continuation of this?
Yeah, I already have. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. I've got another 250-page book of just more standalone stories from the same period of the book that I like just as much as the stuff in the book. And I'm working on a novel right now. And then I have a manuscript for book 2, but it picks up in 2006. It's basically the touring years book. So my problem that I'm trying to solve is, how do I make this not just the touring years book? Because that's what the band becomes. So I'm kicking that around, but I've got, you know, a 300-page manuscript of that done. I just need to figure out how to make it not boring and repetitive. And then we went on tour again, you know. You know, it's like you make it, and then you know, and then you made it, and not having made it and wanting to make it. It's that old analogy, you know. It's your dreams are sometimes, depending on your interests and what have you, and where you end up, sometimes the dreams are better than reality. I don't know what I'm saying anymore. Never mind.
Sí, tinc una història... Bueno, tinc com ja 300 i pico pàgines escrites, un manuscrit de 300 y pico páginas, como una novela también escrita, y sobre esto es sobre los años de gira sobre todo, pero está el reto es cómo hacer que esto no sea aburrido para el público, porque al final la gira pues puede ser como, bueno, volvemos otra vez de gira, que no suene. que no suene aburrido, pero conseguir que esto, pero sí, está escribiendo.
¿Y la novela de qué va?
What's the novel about?
Oh, well, I'm not supposed to tell. I told myself, but it's kind of a paranoid thriller that takes place in the shoegaze 90s, and more recently, it's kind of a what if your paranoid fantasies were reality, and your reality was what was not real. You should have been paranoid about. Yeah, I'm very much enjoying writing it. There's a lot of levels to it that I'm just trying to kind of keep up with, but I'm pretty stoked to go into fiction.
Pues es un thriller paranoico sobre la escena shoegaze de los 90, donde hay como un juego entre fantasía y realidad, y que se lo está pasando muy bien escribiéndola. Pues sí, ya está.
Super. Bueno, para ir acabando, bueno, me gustaría que hay como... ¿Habéis leído el libro? La mayoría de... ¿Sí? Bueno, yo para mí los 2-3 momentos más descojonantes son bastante tragicómicos. Y me gustaría como que explicaras, o sea, que contaras sin escatimar en gestos y aspavientos. Te voy a dar algunas opciones ¿vale? de partes del libro. La A sería el momento de la patada de Matt en tu cara y un poco hasta que te despiertas en la furgoneta, que es algo que sale en el documental, pero no se pone en contexto. B, el momento en el que estás como autoexiliado en Portland y en un momento de desesperación y hambre absoluta intentas comer unas hamburguesas podridas de un Burger King del container de delante y con todo lo que pasa después en el lavabo del local de estudio. O C, el momento Austin Powers que hemos comentado antes. O sea, puedes elegir una y explicarla un poquito a quien no haya leído el libro.
El peor momento
El peor momento, sí. El momento más bajo que se narra, es un momento de auto-shaming, que es algo como que muy sanamente haces en el libro y que creo que es muy guay, ¿no?
So,
Don't tell me.
to get it?
Pass, ¿no? Next question.
Could you share the lowest point in your novel, like the most hilarious lowest point in your novel? He offers you 3 options. A, the moment where you're kicked in the face by Matt and how you end up in a van afterwards.
Yeah.
B, the moment where you're hungry and end up eating rotten hamburgers.
We have a lot at the moment that you sleep in the church.
Yeah, there's a bunch. I know.
You can try it.
Yeah.
Or C, the Austin Powers moment we were talking
No,
about.
I think that's very... no, creo que es la
Not that one.
No, otra más.
Okay.
Or you can choose whatever lowest point in your novel you want to share with the audience.
Okay. Lowest point in the novel. Well, gosh, that's a good one. I mean, this is pretty good picks. So, I guess, yeah. I mean, yeah, the garbage can's pretty bad. Well, okay. There's one that's not in the book. There's one that's not in the book. So this is a bonus track. Basically, before I got kind of left the city and came back later to move into this warehouse situation, what kind of the last straw was I was staying at Matt Hollywood's house. I kind of ended up being there for a while. And one night we were partying at some house in the Haight area, and him and I were drinking whiskey, and he got mad at me because his big grievance is always I don't pay attention to what he says. And that's, if you ever hung out with Matt a bunch on whiskey, you would know why I didn't. But he kind of kicked me out of his deal. Or no, I was kind of like, screw you, I'm not staying at your place. You're not allowed anyway, that kind of thing. And I marched off drunk, and I had nowhere to go. So I ended up sleeping on the steps of the St. Ignatius Church on the Upper Haight. And I woke up the next morning, Sunday morning, and I was covered in a layer of dew. And I'm awoken by these giant blaring church bell bong sounds. I wake up and I've got the most insane hangover, and there's all these people coming up to the steps to church, and you know, I'm laying and I'm blocking the doors. I'm like, they can't get in. So, you know, I kind of like animate up and stumble away, and I'm walking down the street. I don't know what to do. I don't know where to go. And I see my reflection in the window. And at the time, I kind of had this, you know, I kind of had like a Beatles haircut, but I'd spray it up with hairspray. And it was all ratted out, you know, and I'd do all this. And I looked in the mirror, and it was all doing all this here. But on this side, it was just a perfectly flat vertical wall, like about 7 inches high. And like you turn, and like it's got the consistency of like canned spaghetti, you know, when you just dump it out. And there's all these like stones and pebbles. And that's me, you know, that's my life. I'm a bum now. You know, I'm officially, before the hamburgers, you know, before that, this was the first crossover into that bum world that I had, you know, I'd gone through the portal in the name of music. And I was just walking down the street with that Chambers Brothers song in my head. You know, time has come today because the cowbell matched my steps. And he's like, you know, I've got no place to stay. And then I remember Dean Taylor, the guitar player in the band, lived a couple blocks away. And so I eventually found a place to go. But that was my first time like, dude, you're a bum.
Pues eso no está en el libro, bueno, esto no está en el libro, es un bonus track. Estaba en casa de Matt bebiendo whisky, y Matt se enfadó con él mucho y le mandó a cagar y le dijo, tú no te quedas aquí hoy. Entonces se tuvo que ir a dormir a las escaleras de una iglesia. Un sábado por la noche, despertó ahí el domingo, se despertó con toda la gente que venía a la iglesia aquí en su cara, y se despertó con llevaba un pelo como el corte de pelo a lo Beatle, se despertó con el pelo así como aquí a lo Beatle y aquí todo plano, como se lleva, bueno, en fin, como se llevar aquí espaguetis pegados y piedras y cosas, y bueno, esa fue su incursión en esta especie de, como su entrada, como su primera incursión en este mundo de casi de vagabundo de la música. Finalmente Taylor le dejó dormir en su casa, pero bueno, esa es una de las...
You didn't say dude.
Dean Taylor.
You did? I'm
Yeah.
sorry.
Yeah. I did not get, you were covered in what?
Dew, water. Like,
Okay, yeah.
Yeah. San Francisco fog.
En el rocío el rocío. O mojado.
Para mí también, así como apunte personal, es otro de los puntos fuertes del libro, ¿no? Que no son unas memorias de una estrella del rock, pero no de una estrella del rock desde lo alto, ¿no? Desde los creatos, sino que son... tiene mucho de tragicómico y de autoparodia y de desmitificación, ¿no? Y de cercanía, ¿no? Y no sé, para ir acabando, porque creo que no tenemos mucho tiempo más, creo que querías leer una parte, pero no, ¿tienes una copia del libro en inglés? Bueno, okay, vale, has preparado.
Copy of the book in English?
Yeah, okay. Do you want to write?
You want to read?
Okay. Sure.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. Had to trade in my sunglasses. sorry.
No hemos comentado el título, creo, que en inglés es In the Jungle,
Jingle Jungle.
in the Jingle Jungle Jungle, ¿no? Que supongo que es bueno, yo a Bob Dylan, ¿no? Mr. Tambourine Man. Y también hay una canción ¿cómo se llama?
Bobby Darin.
Bobby Darin, ¿no? Bueno, no sé
Yeah, I
cuál es.
found out about that later.
Okay, sorry.
No, just kidding. All right, I'll just read this one about we were all living. It was after the Portland thing. The band's all just reconvened, and it's 1997, and we're all living in Los Angeles in this band house together. And we're all bumming out, and nobody has any money, and so this opportunity arises. After the big party, our address became of note to various people, including yet another pair of girls who showed up every few days, always wearing workout gym clothes, who just wanted to hang out in the living room and snort cocaine. Matt and I would usually serve as hosts for these drop-ins, and I'd learned through repeated nose reps that I don't really like coke all that much. This is a key factor in why my brain still functions enough to even be writing all of this today. What was funny about these two is they really were coming directly from the gym, still in their tight nylon tanks and capris like this was a part of the training routine. It all stays pretty innocent, and that's okay, because I like it when random weirdness remains faithful to its original state. And we also get lots of drugs that I keep hoping I'll suddenly like because, well, I'm supposed to. We were waiting for the day when the Cougar Alky ladies and the workout cokehead girls would randomly meet, but unfortunately this head-to-head match never occurred. For some reason, Andi was periodically working for Camel cigarettes on promotional events. Feeling sorry for our regular regiment of half-maybes, she'd pulled some strings and rigged us winners' tickets to a big Camel cigarettes random drawing contest for a trip to Las Vegas. It included transportation and a free room at the Hard Rock Hotel and Casino with booze and buffets. Brad, Dean, Matt, and I became miraculous random contest winners despite not having entered or even smoked a Camel cigarette in many latelys. While Anton, who smoked enough Camel non-filters for all four of us, wanted nothing to do with this trip to Vegas. Peter also passed in favor of something he just kind of mumbled. We meet up in an unused parking lot off of Hollywood Boulevard with all the other contest winners. There's lots of smoking going on, as you might imagine, and this line is more or less a no smoking zone. The bus itself is actually a no smoking zone, so as each person gets on, they display all the smoker styles of taking the last second drags as one foot levitates in hesitation above the first step. There's the Hot Toots jazz solo, the Firing Squad 3 count, the all-in-one Grim Reaper ash finger, and of course, the ground score Good Samaritan. By the time we inch our way through the line and get close to the bus door, there are enough butts under our feet that it kind of simulates a sort of cigarette filter rough road red carpet. The four of us take over the row of back seats on the large tour bus. Every seat holds a winner, and we are ready with just enough money for beer and tequila to get us to Vegas. Plus, we've got some of the workout routine cocaine. Once the bus is loaded, we can begin to do the same. But first, I head up to the driver and ask him to play my cassette copy of the Stones' Exile on Main Street. I've also brought my umbrella, and just to show how little I care for conventional practices in general, I'm using my umbrella for the sun. When I think about it, wow. Not only will it help me to beat the desert heat, but at the same time provide a party partition between us and the driver's passenger observation mirror. By the end of the double album, we are feeling pretty, and when the bus doors open in the Hard Rock parking lot, we each come out with a skip and finger snap, ready to dance into some action. Tough guy, Jets dancer style from West Side Story. Unfortunately, the reality revealed while checking in that the free booze part of the story was misinformation, and it's in fact only all about a hotel room and buffets. We get to our room and waste no haste in master planning our way into socking it to the sober conspiracy. We have to act fast because our bodies are processing all the alcohol we have within us and transform sobriety juice by the second. We collect all of our pocket change and head down to the hotel lobby casino to hit the nickel slot machines. Like the Rat Pack in Ocean's 11, all four of us would simultaneously implement the same job on the house by pretending to be big-time nickel slot machine tycoons and get a free drink. Our crew finds a crowded section and pretend we don't know each other, despite how out of place we look in the casino, yet how in place we look ourselves, and if one were to imagine us all sitting close together. This move to the busy section will in fact speed along the serving process. We see our drinks being tray loaded and exchange covert knowing glances, like you do in undercover heist jobs. Our plan isn't financially backed with enough for tips, so we take our single drink takes and head towards the free rock concert being put on by the Camel Contest winners. The band playing is the Smithereens, and although they had an affinity with British invasion mod groups, they were kind of like the Bruce Springsteen blue-collar worker-friendly version, and we didn't care about this band. Despite the Camel schedules given to everyone on the buses, there's almost nobody here. There's a small group of seemingly hired fans dancing in a tight cluster for the cameras to keep zooming in on over and over again. And the large stage screens, you can see the various camera angles quickly cut from the band to fans in a way that makes it look like something is happening here that really isn't. It's creating a reality more suitable to broadcast to the people watching at home on MTV. Suddenly, everyone is on the clock in a fantasy scenario as the camera acrobatics paint large and broad strokes of a different picture over the failed one with each quick flyby of the camera crane. Meanwhile, the band on stage look uneasy with all of this, like they've just been called to the boss's office during a series of layoffs. Andi suddenly appears, and then we all see what she looks like without her camera on. She has swung some drink tickets for us, and we refortify with doubles down on each dude. With nothing much more to see here except more of nothing much, we venture out to this lame rock casino on a search for old Rat Pack Vegas. Unfortunately, the amount of classic mid-century architecture that has been demolished only to be replaced with tacky garbage of the times. The amount of classic mid-century architecture that's been demolished only to be replaced with tacky garbage of the times is astounding. We thought we'd at least be able to visit small areas of their ancient ruins, like in Rome, a special site where we could camp up. But the legacy of what made this place cool and swinging in the first place is nowhere to be found. Even the 70s lime green polyester world of the Hunter S. Thompson book is gone. It's more like a sprawling city constructed by set designers of an 80s hair metal video, like the hard rock was a disease that had now spread and multiplied over the entire town. On the other hump of the Camel ride is BGM performing a tour kickoff show of sorts at a Camel-sponsored night for a new line of cigarettes at Moguls off Hollywood Boulevard. The event is billed as Desert Chic, and the white people sheiks are in the house watching lounge area belly dancers huffing at hookah stations by the bar while we hit the stage where usually the next wannabe, Third Eye Blind, Matchbox 20, Creed, Garbage, Blink-182, Sugar Ray, Big Head Todd of the Monsters, 311, Dave Matthews Band, Smash Mouth, Counting Crows, Sublime, or Everclear would go. Sorry, that was cruel to keep going like that, but that's what they call reality these days. Tell him. Yeah.
Bueno, el pasaje cuenta como que muchas cosas, como que este libro existe gracias a que nunca fue un gran aficionado a la cocaína, ¿no? Por tanto, conserva la memoria. Entonces, podemos quedarnos con este mensaje constructivo de no a ciertas drogas. Y no sé, y creo que la sesión de firma será abajo, ¿verdad? O sea que si queréis, vamos ya para ahí. Gracias, Joel. Otro aplauso. Exactamente.
No, it's fine. Yeah, no, it's great. Yeah.
Sí. Ay, mira, perdonad, dice que pueden ser aquí pueden ser aquí las firmas.
You know what I was doing? I was doing Audrey Hepburn in Roman Holiday.